and welcome to the experiential learning of health, wellness, and sports society roundtable. Today, 3 important questions around women's sport and health are going to be discussed. We have Miranda, Dagny, Cheryl, and Nico, and Cheryl is filling in for absent students. Each discussant will be basing their responses on some brief general research of the questions, as well as the assigned speaker videos. Dagny is going to be discussing Jessica Platt, who is the first openly transgender woman to play professional hockey in North America, as well as Fabien Blizzard, who is the first woman coach in professional basketball in Ottawa. Miranda will be discussing Robyn Hunter, who is the former athletic therapist with the Halifax Mooseheads and Montreal Canadiens. Nico will be discussing Maggie Campbell, who is a dancer and coach with the Niagara River Lions dance team. Cheryl will be discussing Jillian Reed, who is a registered dietitian who empowers women and families to feel their best through a positive relationship with food, as well as Dr. Tina Atkinson, who is the physician for Hockey Canada National Women's Team. Finally, she'll also be discussing Sue Rogers, who is a former national team triathlete and biathlete, coach, and behavior resource teacher. So we're going to start off with the first question, which is, why do we feel there are so many inequalities in women's sport and health careers? Dagny, would you like to start with Fabien?
So in Fabien's video, she talked about how in her IT job, she wasn't taken seriously in her meetings and her ideas were dismissed. And a lot of the times when she's coaching basketball, referees will walk over to the male coach, assuming that she's not the head coach. So just in sports in general, women are often like dismissed as not seen as in charge, and they don't get taken seriously.
Maggie?
From Maggie, she talked about, I don't think she said inequality or anything like that, but she had a bad experience with a coach that was body shaming and not being supportive of her, and so it kind of goes into like females have to be a certain body type or a certain way when they're doing a certain sport, so that was like interesting when she talked about it.
Miranda, does Robyn have anything to add to that?
In Robyn's video, she hoped to see some of the financial inequities between men's and women's hockey level out. An example she mentioned was when the Women's Worlds this last year was completely canceled due to COVID, but we still saw the World Juniors tournament go on for like maybe 2 games. She also mentioned that women athletes and like trainers in her position often find themselves working full-time jobs in order to pay to afford to participate in their sports as well.
And Cheryl, what does Tina Atkinson have to say about that?
So Dr. Tina is in an interesting position where she is a physician, so she works in a field that has been historically dominated by men, but she is applying her expertise to both men's and women's sports. So she has like a unique bird's eye view of how and where inequality happens. But in her video, one of her main points was just the assumption that she sees throughout her experiences that women don't actually like sports. And she thinks that that leads to inequality because often sports starts off with the assumption that women don't like it anyway, so then it automatically doesn't always include them from the get-go, and that is a source of one of the problems that she talked about.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that question? No? Okay, moving on to question 2. What are ways that we think that women can get more attention in their careers in sport and health to start closing the gap? We're going to start with you, Nico.
Going through Maggie's video, she explained there's no disadvantage in her sport, and her sport is mostly women. There is some men in there, and there's sprinkled in there. There hasn't been no issues with how Maggie has handled leading the dance team. One thing Maggie explains that her sport has been taken not serious compared to other sports because it's more of flirty, more entertainment. So a lot of people don't take it really seriously, and I understand that. Like if you're going to like sports game and you see cheerleaders, you're not taking it seriously, so you just think there's more to it. And so you're judging a book by its cover, but there's a lot of things. Maggie explained that there's a lot of work that goes into the dancing, the training, like all of it. So that's what I got for it.
Dagny, Jessica?
Jessica, as a trans athlete, she just wants the conversation to keep going, and make people more comfortable with trans athletes, and she wants them to be accepted. So if the conversation keeps going, and hopefully over time they'll get more accepted into sports.
Cheryl, touching on Sue Rogers.
Right, so Sue is the national level triathlete turned coach and teacher. And I think that Sue is a wonderful example of someone who has dedicated their whole life to how to answer this question, how to increase attention, how to increase awareness and create change, by literally being there on the ground every day, working not just with young girls and women, but kids and folks of all genders to try to take the inequality that she has seen. And she mentioned stuff like knowledge of the fact that a lot of women athletes are also moms, they're working moms, and I don't think that we all necessarily think of that. And so Sue has made a point to give those voices a platform, not unlike we're doing today, to make sure that other people have that knowledge and are more mindful moving forward when thinking about gender in both sport and health.
Miranda, do you want to touch on Robyn?
I don't have an answer for Robyn.
So Dagny, do you want to speak on Fabien?
So Fabien, there currently isn't a professional women's basketball league in Canada, and visibility is very important for women's sports to grow. If there's not a league, like, young girls aren't going to see that there's a future for them in basketball. So I think that Fabien's trying to start a league, and she's trying to get that going because, like I said, if there's no league for some young female athlete to aspire to be in, then why would they keep playing? So visibility is very important.
I can touch on Robyn if you want.
Yeah.
I think Robyn's big thing from her video, she talked about women's hockey in that case because she's worked in professional women's hockey before, and she really stresses that they need more resources. They're worth watching. Their hockey is exciting, but they don't get the attention that they deserve. And so one of the big things is broadcasting, for instance, media coverage, things like that. So Robyn really pushes for getting that attention because it's in Robyn's mind, women's hockey is worth watching. It is deserving of the attention. It's just making a point to give it so that more people will understand how great it is.
Anyone have anything they want to say on that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You guys are all athletes. Necko, so what is your experience and what do you think needs to be done to close the gap? So you answer the question.
Yeah, I think we need to have more attention around our hockey, and our stuff should be broadcasted the same way that men's hockey is, men's sports in general. I find there's not enough attention around women's sports, and whenever they put posters or putting out ads, it's all men's hockey and stuff. So we need to just have a little bit more attention put towards ours as well, because ours is just as fun to watch as men.
And the budget aspect of it, obviously if the men's side has a bigger budget, they're going to be able to do more things. And if we don't have the budget to promote ourselves or have the same type of equipment or facilities, you don't have the same resources, it's harder to get to the same place.
Yeah. When we're younger, or there's not enough promotion around it, that when you're a female coming up in a male-dominated sport, when you're young, you kind of get defeated early. So we just need to have bigger role models there for the younger people to be able to look forward to.
I think that goes back to what Tina was saying about the assumption that girls don't like sports, when sometimes it's actually just that they haven't been introduced to them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so moving on to the last question. What are some of the main stereotypes around women's sport and health, and what steps can we take to reduce them? Miranda, we'll start with you on Robyn.
Robyn, in her job as an athletic therapist, she felt the need to grow thick skin. What she meant by that is when she had to go into the coach's room and pull players off the roster because they were injured, she would almost have to explain, she felt the need to explain herself to the coaches, and sometimes coaches wouldn't listen to her. And she also felt that sometimes her relationship with the male athletes may be questioned by others.
Nico?
I think I said it before in the question, but Maggie's sport is not taken seriously, so it's seen as a form of entertainment. It's like free, fun, like that. But like I said, there is a lot of work that the dancers have to do. And if you watch her video, she talked about they have to get down to 5 to 10 routines within a 2-month period. It have to be good and consistent all the time. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a big process, and Maggie explained that her and another, I forget the name of the other person she worked with. Okay, there's actually way more behind the scenes than just the dancing and like the dancing and the choreography. So there's much more of like logistics and like putting the team together, who we fit here, where to go, like how do we do this, like so there's a lot more and a lot more process. So that's a big thing that I got from that video.
Dagny, what does Jessica have to say about this one?
So there's like a misconception that transgender women aren't women, and you know, Jessica, like when she transitioned, she lost a lot of like speed and like muscle mass. So like that, saying that like she's a man is like not true, and just like I think continuing the conversation of like making people aware of what transgender people go through, and like just making people aware that transgender women are women. I think that'll help reduce the misconception, because it's not a fair thing to assume. So.
Yeah, definitely. What does Jillian Reed have to say, Cheryl?
So this isn't something that Jillian spent a lot of time on in her video, but knowing her and knowing her field of work, I know diet culture is something that she works to combat every day, and diet culture is usually full of stereotypes about what it means to be healthy, when I think they're actually getting at what it means to be beautiful. So ideas, and diet culture affects both men and women differently, but I think sometimes equally. But for women, there's certainly a set of beauty ideals. A smaller body, it seems to be considered more ideal. And all of the sort of jokes about carbs and things like that, I think that women, there's a certain expectation for them to be healthy when we have kind of lost the definition of health. And so when Jillian helps women especially work to eat well, she spends a lot of time doing what we call unlearning diet culture, which is unlearning all of those stereotypes about what it means to be healthy, and actually focusing on what's right for that woman, what's right for her body, and caring less about how she looks or how people think she looks, and more on whether her body feels good because she's fueling it with nutrient-dense foods.
And Dagny, what does Fabien have?
When she was coaching against a team that had a male head coach, he was like really upset with one of the referees, and he was like swearing and yelling, and she had only said one comment to the referee, and she was told to sit down. So like I think women like are like branded as like emotional, and they can get upset very easily, but when like a man does the same thing, he's just seen as passionate, or like, oh, he just really cares about like his team. But then when she was told to sit down, it was like disrespectful because she was getting upset, but she said one thing and she was calm about it. So there's like a double standard there. And if everyone just like, if she was just seen as a coach and not as a woman, I feel like that would have been different. She would have been respected. So I don't think that when coaches or players, like females, like I think they need to be treated as like how they would treat a man, because everybody has emotions. It doesn't matter if you're male or female.
I found that was a big thing with Serena Williams too, the tennis player, that even if she wasn't losing her cool, but she was just like asking questions or clarifying or pointing out inequalities, she would be seen as overly emotional and losing her cool and in need of like to be controlled. And she has been very vocal about the fact that if she was a man, or especially a white man, she probably wouldn't have gotten the same backlash from officials that she did.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone have any comments left before we close it out? All right, so thank you everyone for being a part of our roundtable discussion. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them below. And that's it.